This is Radio TV Phono Nut, and this is a Westinghouse AM tube radio from probably around 1947, and it looks to be one of their nicer ones from the time period. It's in a wooden case, and it's in decent shape, just needs to be cleaned up a little bit. And this looks to have a phono input, which makes sense because I think this same chassis was used in a radio phono combination. We can't plug this in. Well, I guess we could, but we'd have our own little 4th of July, and it would trip the circuit breaker in my shop. And seeing as how my shop is cluttered up, it would take me all day to get to the circuit breaker, so let's just not trip it. Let's just put a new power cord on it and go from there. 6-tube chassis with a push-pull audio output stage and a tube missing. It looks like the busted tube is way up in there. I think I remember this set. It was one I got off of eBay, and like most others, wasn't packed well. Cabinet didn't get damaged, but one of the tubes got jarred out of its socket and broke, which I guess that could happen regardless of how well the set's packed. I'm about to the point, if I get a radio and all the damage it suffered was a busted tube, then I'll be thankful. And here's the original Westinghouse branded tube, a 25L6. That shouldn't be a problem. We can just take one of those out of one of the many dysfunctional record players that are around here. Even though it's branded Westinghouse, it has a 274 EIA number on it, so that means RCA actually made the tube, and it's date coded the 30th week of 46, so about what I said about 47 is pretty close. That's probably when this radio was made. And this is a model H130. We have the chassis removed. The speaker stays behind. Yeah, the speaker looks like it's date coded the 25th week of 46. So yeah, so 46, 47 on this. Here's the chassis, about 13 caps to change, not counting the electrolytic and the orange drop that somebody replaced a long time ago. This electrolytic is also a replacement. Looks like a Sprague atom with a 67 date code on it. Alright, let's get to it. Now, since this is going to be a proper restoration and not a resurrection, we'll do it the correct way and get rid of all the caps and get rid of any resistors that are out of spec. Find a 25L6 tube, put a power cord on it, fire it up, see what it does, and then go from there. Yeah, this one's going to be a bit of a booger bear because the chassis won't stand up on its own, and some of the caps look to be in fairly inaccessible places. This one here that they replaced looks like the AC line capacitor, and I can see little remnants of black crap under here. I'm sure the old one was a bumblebee that probably exploded and caught on fire, so no surprise there. Here's our cathode bias resistor for both output tubes. You can tell this one is well baked. Typically it's supposed to be 150 ohms. I'll go check the schematic just to make sure, but it's reading about 500 ohms. And also the off-on switch is open. I haven't checked that. I'm not getting any continuity across it. I'll try cleaning it and see if that'll help, but we might either have to replace that or just bypass it and put an inline switch in the power cord, since these kind of controls with the type switch that we need on them and the type shaft matching are getting hard and expensive to find, so this one might just get jumpered and we'll put a inline switch on the power cord. Alright, I consulted the schematic, and oddly enough, this is a 91 ohm resistor. I don't think I've ever ran into such an odd value used as a cathode bias resistor. And looking at the bands closer, that makes sense. I don't have a 91 ohm, but I have a 100 ohm, and that should work just fine. It would have to be better than 500 ohms. Here's the old resistor. 491 ohms. The heat from the soldering iron must have brought it down a little bit, but nonetheless it's still bad. And here's the new resistor installed in the two plate capacitors on each output tube that they connect between the plate and the cathode. They help shape the tone a little bit, but their main function is to prevent high voltage spikes from causing the output tube to possibly arc internally. So they're more or less arc suppression more than anything else. Here's that cap changed, and we had to add some extra length to the original capacitor lead because it wasn't long enough. I think nowadays they assume that most of these caps are going to be installed on printed circuit boards, so they don't give you nice long leads like they used to, but that's why we hang on to a lot of the parts we remove from stuff, to salvage leads off of them, to extend the leads on our new parts when necessary. And we have our leads sleeved, so there's no chance of them shorting out to anything. Alright, let's carry on here. Yes, this is time consuming, but I'd rather take my time and do it right. In other words, if it takes 2 hours to change one cap, then I'd rather do it that way and have it look somewhat neat than taking 5 minutes and having it look like a slop job. Sometimes defective components and test equipment really can work together, especially in cases when you need to prop the chassis up at a certain angle to make it easier to work on the underside of it. Another helpful hint is to have a little small screwdriver like this, flat blade screwdriver, and while you're heating up the terminal that you're removing the part from, you can ram this screwdriver between the component lead where they generally bend it over, and you can stick this down in the bend, and while the connection is hot, you can pry the bend back, and it'll make it easier to get the component out of the terminal that you're unsoldering it from. Well, they seem to be in love with .01s, because so far every one I've replaced in this set has been a .01. We're going to use up my supply of .01s on this one radio, looks like. Alright, this was a bit of a challenge. Pin 5, you see it sandwiched right up against the chassis, in a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 parts connected to that pin. But I finally got them out without breaking the tube socket pin off, terminal off. Wouldn't that have been a tire kicker? This mica cap here, it's probably okay, but I'm going to test it for leakage, because as big of a pain in the butt as this was, I don't want to have to deal with this again. If this is bad, I want to go ahead and get rid of it. This resistor is a little bit out of tolerance. It's not enough that would keep the set from working. You probably wouldn't even notice any adverse effects, but there again, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of it and replace it while I'm here. Well, my capacitor tester, the old school one, decided to start acting stupid. The leakage lamp flashes no matter what setting it's on now, even with no cap connected, so pretty soon we're going to have to do a video of repair of the test equipment. But this reads about 450 picofarad on the little digital thing, so we're going to say it's good, and there's not much voltage on this cap, so we're going to leave it for now. Alright, we're getting there. We had to do a little rearranging, but it looks what I consider professional looking. This cap here is a .2 that connects between circuit ground and chassis. It's formerly this guy here that was ran under here and attached to this terminal strip here. Here's our filter capacitor, our output filter. Ground here, and then the other positive end, of course, connects to the output of this resistor that we replaced. Now, both this resistor and the original are 2-watt resistors, but newer 2-watt resistors are oftentimes physically smaller than older ones. And then there's a black cap, .1 cap, lurking under here that connects across this output filter capacitor. I suspect that's some sort of RF bypass cap to keep any stray RF off of the B+ line. Alright, I've finally got all the caps replaced except for the one on the loop antenna, and I sprayed some cleaner in the volume control with the chassis laying on its back so the cleaner could run down into the switch, and after flipping it back and forth a bunch of times, it decided to behave and have continuity, so maybe we won't have to jump that switch and put an inline cord switch on the power cord. But that does bring to mind a valid point. As I've already mentioned, a lot of these switches are not the easiest to find replacements for, and when you do find them, they're kind of pricey, and each time you turn it off and on at the set, you're putting more wear and tear on the original switch that's decades old that could break at any time. So in that regard, it's probably best just to leave the set turned on and either unplug it when you're finished with it or have it plugged into a switched power strip and just turn it off at the power strip. Preserve your 50, 60, 70, 80 plus year old power switch. And if you do find a new production one, it's probably going to be some Chinesium 666 special that surely won't hold up as long as the original did. I did get a tad bit lazy with this capacitor because where it solders to is on the bottom end of the tuning condenser, and that would mean me having to unstring the dial, pull the tuner completely out, and I just wasn't up for doing all that, so I just spliced onto the original lead and put some heat shrink tubing over it, and it's not going to short. It ought to be good to go now. Alright, back on the Westinghouse, as you can hear, we've made progress. It's playing. It's still not quite as perky as I think it should be. I think it could stand to be a little better. Replaced all the capacitors and then a resistor here. I'll show it to you on the schematic. This one right there that connects between the hot side of the line and the plate of the rectifier tube, it's a 22 ohm. Well, the original was reading 90 ohms, and even though the radio played with it in there, that was way out of tolerance, so I changed it. It might have helped a little bit, but not a great deal. That just goes to show that sometimes these resistors can be 1,000,000% out of tolerance and still work. That's just how forgiving tube circuitry tends to be. And if this would have been a solid state circuit, something would have probably blown up with a resistor being that far out of whack. That's wide open, and I think it should have more volume than that, and on the couple of the stronger stations it does, but
This is Hometown Good News Gospel Radio, WMER Meridian, Mississippi, 93.1 FM, 1390 AM, W226BI. We offer local weather when seconds count, and every hour you're kept up to date with ABC News, which starts right now.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. Hurricane Dorian prompting President Trump to cancel his trip to Poland this weekend.
Our highest priority is...
there's 1450, the Fox Sports station. You can tell it's kind of puny. Not that I would want to hear it, but still.
Traveling instead in place of the president for the 80th anniversary. Anywhere is still likely going to have incredibly strong wind gusts and the potential for flooding because of storm surge as well as heavy rainfall.
Correspondent Leila Santiago is in Port Kennedy.
Owning a trip to Poland this weekend.
Our highest priority is the safety and security of the people.
And we can forget the station at 670. It won't come in. If I can get that station to come in, then we'll know the radio is operating at peak efficiency. Alright, when you get a radio that's not working quite right, or maybe not working at all, one thing that you need to do is check voltages and see if you find any that are off. Looking at pin 2 of the first audio and phase inverter tube, I've got 27 volts. Now the schematic is kind of smudgy and I can't make out what it's supposed to be, but 27 seems a bit low. And it looks like we have a 150 k-ohm resistor going from that point that goes back over to the screen grid of the audio output tube. So let's look at the voltage there and see what we have. And I've got 85 volts there. And from what I can make out of the schematic, it looks like there's supposed to be 82 on the screen grid, so 85 is well within tolerance. Alright, let's check that 150 k-ohm resistor and see what it reads. And I'm getting 247 k, which is way off. So that one's definitely out of tolerance and needs to be replaced, and naturally that should bring the voltage up on the plate of that tube and might give us a little more audio. And then again, it might not, but certainly can't hurt nothing by changing the resistor. Can't tell if that's supposed to be green or gray. It looks like gray, and if that's the case, that'll be 180 k-ohms. But 150, 180, it's not going to make much difference. But anyway, what it reads is way out of whack, so probably need to go ahead and change it. Yeah, that's 180 k, and it's reading 273 k, 272 k, which is close enough to 100 k over to say it's 100 k, so we'll go ahead and change that. Alright, the closest thing I have is 150 k. That's a little low, but it shouldn't be low enough to cause any problems. It'll just mean a few more volts on the plate of that tube, and I don't think that'll hurt anything. Okay, I replaced some resistors in the audio output stage that were out of tolerance. It helped a little bit. Now, changing those resistors were not easy. This radio in general is pretty packed up. Generally, the higher performance the radio, the more packed up, the more of a pain in the butt it's going to be. But we're listening to WSM, and the sensitivity seems to be pretty good. I think the audio output could be better, especially since we have a push-pull output stage here.
Kellen Mond with 3 touchdowns for the Aggies, and 17th ranked UCF on top of Florida A&M, 55-0 in the fourth. This update presented by Geico. 15% or more on car insurance.
Tough going for you.
But what answer? First,
Here was a great team.
That you feel until it happens. Most people lose their vision from diseases like macular degeneration, not at birth. With macular degeneration, you look.
That doesn't take a lot of courage to do that.
And after 20 years, over 16,000 companies run their businesses on that. In control,
Yeah, turn the air conditioner off. It'll sound a little better now. That must be WDIA out of Memphis.
And I said,
Quicken or go to rocketmortgage.com to take advantage. Here's a
compliment what she does.
Powerhouses in a long run.
I have no idea what that is.
7 My FM.
99.7 My FM. Wherever that's from. Apparently this is just another AM station that has an FM translator, and they're not even giving the AM frequency anymore. They're just keeping the AM going just so they can have an FM translator. I'm going to look this up on the computer and try to find out where this station is originating from. Okay, I replaced some more out-of-tolerance resistors. In some cases, and this was one of those cases, it seems like replacing one may not make a lot of difference, but when you get them all replaced, it seems to work better, and that's definitely what happened here. Cleaned the chassis and the tubes up a little bit, didn't go hog wild with it, and had to fix the broken dial pointer. I just soldered it back together. Don't know how well it'll hold, but it's not like this is a very strenuous application anyway. Alright, I'm about ready to put it all back together and call it done. Actually, I'm going to put it all back together to test it, because that's when it's guaranteed to screw up once I have it all put back together again.
6. MCC was not my first choice, but it's by far been the best. And like it or not, I'm that man. And everything there you need to know is website. And now, let's get to the Word of God. More than friend or life to me. Recover at the 35-yard line. 3 plays later, though, they're punting back to the Golden Eagles under 2.
As you can tell, it's playing good now.
A third down pass play was out of bounds, so Strine and
for the Bulldog. Back, runs left.
Was Southern missing? With support and comfort to enhance your quality.
Believing the pig she was buying was going to stay little, but Lucas the...
Now that 99.7 my FM, I looked that up. Can't remember the call letters, but it was some AM station out of Monroe, Louisiana, 10,000 watts day, 1,000 night. And like I figured, they have an FM translator, and as you heard, they weren't even mentioning the AM side. They were just focusing on the FM translator.
Ultrasound, a newer, more targeted approach, uses MRI technology to help identify prostate cancer. A new study examined whether using MRI was better at detecting prostate cancer, especially higher-risk tumors.
Of course, if the quality of programming on AM was better, and if modern-day receivers had the sound quality that these older ones like this one have, AM radio as a whole might be doing better.
Guided targeted biopsy and also a standard biopsy using ultrasound alone. The results of both biopsies were then compared. The study appears in JAMA, Journal of the American Medical Association.
Big, using so much force, not trying to hurt him. He just happened to be coming over to assist on the tackle and landed on top of him, and that is...
Children's Healthcare of Atlanta helps young athletes not only prevent injury, but heal faster and return stronger, ready to win. Our more than 25 orthopedic and sports medicine locations are ready to assist your athlete's comeback. To learn more, visit choa.org.
That must be WSB.
It's important to call the right play. In life, it can be even more important to make the right
I hear that they're another station that is now pretty much switched their news over to WSB FM, and they say that the AM is going to become a sports station. So that's the scuttlebutt I'm hearing.
Make the right call. Cook's Pest Control.
Here comes Cook's Pest Control. At Georgia Power, we believe our lake should be filled with water, not trash. That a healthy honeybee population will pollinate a healthier...
repair of this, there was nothing exotic or crazy or mind-boggling wrong. It was just a bunch of bad resistors and capacitors that you're starting to find with all of these. The only thing with this one is a lot of those parts were pretty cramped to get to, but we got to all of them.
WSB Chicken Fingers wins and is Allen.
Oh, we just watched the dogs go.
Yeah, it's really, it's not a burden to walk the narrow path. Yeah, it's not. And just like mine.
That sounds like WSM, probably.
On that DB. Well, that's the DB that just
Thing's got good sensitivity, and it's about 7:30 in the afternoon.
And their markup. Time left here in the first half. Out of the shotgun with a single back, two receivers right, one to the left side. Looking at first down and 10 and running.
Some kind of, like you told in the first step.
So let me ask you this, Karen. When you say the concrete with the rocks, so you're talking like concrete mix that has rocks in it, and
this thing would really sound nice if we had a decent music station on AM that was properly engineered. The sound of this would probably rival FM table radios.
It's rain. It's totally full and full of dirt and.
You could go exit road. I could do exit road, but it depends on how.
Alright, there you go, another one saved from the dump. Oh, and if I hadn't already mentioned it already, I have another one of these. It's part of a radio-phono combination. The radio is in a Bakelite case, and it's designed to plug in with the phonograph portion. They made that particular model in both a console and a table model version. Mine is the tabletop version, and we'll get to that one of these days. You can unplug the radio from the phonograph and use it as a standalone radio, or you can couple the radio to the phonograph attachment and have a self-contained radio and phonograph combination.